Welcome to the Site-Specific Plan Amendment Process Educational Series. The policy plan includes goals, objectives, and policies that apply to Fairfax County as a whole. These policies are intended to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the county's residents in a broad sense and are established by the Board of Supervisors with input from community stakeholders. The purpose of the comprehensive plan is to manage growth and development and preserve the county's environmental resources. Growth brings both benefits and challenges in terms of land use, housing, and transportation. The benefits are high quality of life. The challenges impact the provision of public facilities, parks, and recreation facilities, and the conservation of the environment and the county's heritage resources. The purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan is expressed in the goals, objectives, and policies of the policy plan. More specific guidance is found in the 4 area plans. The county's ordinances and regulations implement the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. The functional elements of the policy plan elaborate on the goals, objectives, and policies set by the Board of Supervisors for the county. Each element has a series of goals, objectives, and policies associated with it. I'm going to cover only some of these elements and some of the most common objectives and policies that are referred to on a regular basis. The countywide objectives and policies for land use have been organized under 4 broad headings: land use pattern, land use intensity, pace of development, and land use compatibility. The county has adopted a specific goal for land use as well as related goals which provide additional land use direction and guidance in the areas of transportation, open space, revitalization, private sector facilities, and employment. Land use policies provide guidance for the orderly and coordinated development of both public and private uses, providing for adequate levels of public services and facilities, including transportation facilities, and ensuring sound environmental practices in the development and redevelopment of land. The comprehensive plan should set forth long-range recommendations and implementation techniques to ensure the envisioned coordination of development while still achieving economic goals. Objective 8 under land use pattern states that Fairfax County should encourage a land use pattern that protects, enhances, and/or maintains stability in established residential neighborhoods. Policy A under Objective 8 states that existing neighborhoods should be protected and enhanced by ensuring that new infill development is of compatible use, density, and intensity, and that adverse impacts on public facility and transportation systems, the environment, and the surrounding community will not occur. When locating uses next to or in close proximity to each other, which are compatible with each other and which are not. Considerations include building height and mass, noise, vibration, glare, odors, and visual appearance. Higher density uses can have adverse impacts on nearby low density uses. In addition to impacts listed previously, other considerations include increases in vehicular traffic, both from new residents and/or truck traffic for new non-residential uses, the removal of existing trees, and increased stormwater flows. What types of mitigation measures are available to reduce adverse impacts? Landscape screening and buffering, fences, walls, architectural treatment of buildings and parking structure facades, stepping down of building heights are some of these. In cases where uses are incompatible, there are no mitigation measures that are sufficient. Objective 14 under land use compatibility states that Fairfax County should seek to achieve a harmonious and attractive development pattern which minimizes undesirable visual, auditory, environmental, and other impacts created by potentially incompatible uses. Policy C says achieving compatible transitions between adjoining land uses through the control of height and the use of appropriate buffering and screening is desirable. Landscape screening and buffering, and combined with fencing and/or masonry walls, can serve to mitigate undesirable visual and auditory impacts of adjacent uses. The design of landscape screening and buffer areas can include stormwater management features, such as rain gardens, vegetated swales, and features that are designed to slow the flow of stormwater and allow water to infiltrate into soil instead of running off to streets. Stepping down building heights from more intense uses to less intense uses can eliminate visual looming effects and create a gradual transition from more intense uses to less intense uses. The transportation element encourages the use of public transit and non-motorized networks. Objective 2 refers to the components of the transportation plan, which include roadway improvements, new interchanges, and provisions for public transportation facilities in designated enhanced public transportation corridors. Enhanced transportation corridors are major radial and intra-county commuter corridors that are planned to provide public transportation facilities such as rail transit, commuter rail, bus rapid transit, and/or high occupancy vehicle lanes. Objective 3 refers to ensuring that roadways have adequate capacity for the movement of vehicular traffic. Levels of service standards are established to gauge the level of delay at intersections, and the scale ranges from A, less than 10 seconds of delay, through F, more than 80 seconds of delay. Policy B under Objective 3 states that in most parts of the county, a minimum level of service of D should be provided, which corresponds to a delay between 35 and 55 seconds at intersections. Fairfax County has over 1,000 miles of shared use paths, park trails, and sidewalks. These are used by bicyclists, pedestrians, persons with disabilities, joggers, inline skaters, equestrians, and others for both recreation and transportation. The components of the trails plan include recommendations for major and minor trails, shared use paths, stream valley trails, and guidance for surfacing materials and trail widths. Objective 1 of the housing element states that the county should strive to increase the supply of affordable housing units each year by at least 12% of total housing production of the previous year. In addition, the county itself should give priority for the use of county-owned land and/or buildings as an incentive for developers in order to achieve this goal. These are images of the 270-unit residences at Government Center, an affordable and workforce dwelling unit development built on county-owned land on Monument Drive. The environment element, Objective 9, states that identifying, protecting, and enhancing an integrated network of ecologically valuable land and surface waters for present and future residents of Fairfax County is important. Lands may be included within the EQC system if they can achieve habitat quality, meaning the land has a desirable or scarce habitat type, or one could be readily restored, or the land hosts a species of special interest. Connectivity, meaning that a segment of open space could become a part of a corridor to facilitate the movement of wildlife and/or conserve biodiversity. Hydrology, stream buffering, stream protection, meaning the land provides or could provide protection to one or more streams through the provision of shade, vegetative stabilization of stream banks, moderation of stormwater runoff velocities and volumes, trappings of pollutants, and protecting steeply sloping areas near streams from denudation. Recommendations for green building best practices and features can be found throughout the comprehensive plan and are a common expectation at later stages of the development process for most types of development. All new county buildings are required to meet the Leadership in Environmental Excellence and Design LEED Silver certification standards. The Bailey's Crossroads Fire Station is shown in the picture on the right. The LEED certified aerospace engineering building in Chantilly was designed to integrate with existing wetlands in the photo on the left. Balancing the provision of public facilities to serve new growth and development is an important policy. The county obtains new public facilities primarily through proffers during the development review process and through the county's capital improvements program process. The capital improvements program contains a 5-year list of projects around the county with funding levels and sources identified. The 5-year list is reviewed annually by an interdepartmental team and then approved by the Board of Supervisors. Many of the projects on the 5-year list are recommended in the public facilities sections of the area plans within the comprehensive plan. The Heritage Resources element, Objective 2, states that maintaining a county inventory of historic sites to recognize the value of significant heritage resources for preservation is important. Policy A states that evaluating heritage resources for listing in the inventory established through local, state, and national criteria. The quality of significance in history, architecture, archaeology, engineering, and culture is present in districts, sites, buildings, structures, and objects that possess integrity of location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. The inventory contains well-known nationally significant sites such as Mount Vernon and Gunston Hall associated with our nation's founding fathers, as well as sites of local significance such as White Gardens and Annandale, associated with the county's early transition from an agricultural area to a bedroom community for Washington, D.C. The inventory places no additional restrictions on a property. However, inventory sites are included in the comprehensive plan, which encourages their preservation. This photo is a case study of the Silas Burke House. This is located in the Braddock District on Burke Lake Road. A rezoning application was approved by the Board of Supervisors for a sunrise development to rezone the property from the R1 to the R3 residential district to permit a medical care facility. The site is identified on the county inventory of historic sites. It has a historical marker, and it is eligible for listing on the National Register of Historic Places under criteria by the Virginia Department of Historic Resources. Since it is on the inventory, it is included in the comprehensive plan. The comp plan language includes that the Silas Burke House is specifically mentioned in the overview section of the area plan. It is listed in the community planning sector as a potential historic resource. The comp plan recommended also that an increase in density is allowed on the property if the historic house was retained and reused, the facade, historic and open space easements were used on the property, and the architecture of the new structures is compatible with the historic house. Proffers in the rezoning application required that retainment of the Silas Burke House and the 2 outbuildings and the windmill, a feasibility study be conducted for reuse of the house, and that easements including historic and facade easement to preserve the interior and exterior of the character defining features of the Silas Burke House and the windmill, and that an open space easement to protect the view shed between Burke Lake Road and the Silas Burke House. Public outreach included proffers that the Silas Burke House shall be used as an amenity for guests of the medical care facility and that it shall be open to the general public for events on a quarterly basis. The county has developed and maintains a system of parks and recreation spaces designed to fulfill specific purposes. For example, there are recreational parks, resource-based parks, historical resource-related parks, and urban parks. The map on this slide shows the county's community revitalization districts and areas. These are areas that are also contiguous with many of the county's activity centers as described in the comprehensive plan, and these areas are planned to become and/or are in the process of transforming into mixed-use communities where people live, work, and play. The photo on the right is the Mosaic District, which is part of the Merrifield Suburban Center Activity Center. The county's revitalization program was started in the 1980s and provides for concurrent review of rezoning applications and comprehensive plan amendments, and concurrent review of rezoning applications on site plans, administrative approval of parking reductions for non-residential uses, as well as other processes that make it easier to redevelop in revitalization districts. Policy plan amendments attempt to address changing industry trends in the land development industry and to ensure that county policies are responsive to these changes. Policy amendments apply to the county as a whole. This example of an amendment is the Office Building Repurposing Amendment. In 2015, the Board of Supervisors convened the Office Repositioning Work Group to study the issue of vacant office buildings and suggest ways that they could either be repurposed or repositioned. The organization of the work group was a response to the circumstances noted in the group's fall 2016 report that there was over 18 million square feet of vacant office space in the county, and that there were emerging trends for reusing and repurposing vacant office buildings for new uses. The report included a recommendation to introduce flexibility to the zoning ordinance through the minor modifications provisions and to streamline the comprehensive plan review process for potential office repurposing projects. The proposed amendment will create a new appendix in the policy plan called Guidelines for Office Building Repurposing and would introduce flexibility for repurposing projects. It will also add new terms to the glossary. For projects that meet the criteria spelled out in the new appendix, a site-specific plan amendment would not be needed. Zoning applications would still be processed as needed and will provide opportunities for public input. There are a number of emerging trends and technologies that are providing opportunities to enhance the marketability of buildings. Some of these emerging trends, such as co-working, employ a different model for the utilization of office space. Other emerging trends, such as co-living or flexible live-work units, challenge traditional notions of the separation of individual uses within a single site, space, or building, particularly in relation to planning and zoning regulations. We've worked the aspect of needing flexibility into the recommendations we'll review later, but some of these items will require more research and exploration associated with other building types and recommendations in the future. Maker spaces and food incubators are other examples of possible office building conversion uses. Institutional conversion uses, such as using vacant office buildings for new schools, could address the needs for more classroom spaces and new school facilities in a more efficient manner than building new facilities. The proposed policy plan amendment defines where different conversions would be appropriate. The primary consideration when developing a recommendation on what types of conversions would be appropriate for which types of areas was compatibility. In areas planned for mixed-use developments, such as the Tysons Urban Center and community business centers, the list of potential conversion types for office buildings includes light industrial and flex space, urban agriculture, hotel, residential and live work spaces, retail, public facilities, and institutional uses. Some of the areas planned for mixed-use development are shown in the red circles on the map of the county on this slide. Within industrial areas shown in gray and circled in red on this map, the list of potential conversions is limited to public facilities, institutional, and urban agriculture. Residential or live-work uses would not be supported. Performance criteria include compatibility, transportation, site design, schools, parks, and other public facilities, environment, affordable and workforce housing, and historic preservation. One of the primary considerations given to any project evaluated under the comprehensive plan is whether it is compatible with the surrounding development, both existing and planned. Residential conversions should be located in areas where services and amenities to support residential development are present. For transportation, projects should look for opportunities to improve multimodal access, that is, for multiple forms of transportation, including cars, pedestrians, bicycles, and public transportation, as well as to improve internal site circulation. It is anticipated that many proposals will generate an equal or lesser transportation impact than the existing office use. However, if a project would result in a greater impact of the transportation network, transportation demand management programs can be used to offset the increase in trips generated. The site design of proposed conversion projects should include consideration of the streetscape, landscaping, and stormwater management facilities. The proposal should promote a pleasant pedestrian experience. In some cases, flexibility when applying certain county policies may be appropriate. When an existing office use is proposed to convert to a residential use, impacts to schools, parks, and other public facilities should be addressed in proportion to the degree of residential change. Opportunities to enhance the public open space via urban parks or plazas should be explored with all proposed conversions. In terms of the environment, renovations should identify and consider energy efficiency and other green building practices. Stormwater objectives should be met, however, flexibility may be appropriate. Finally, existing trees and high-quality vegetation should be preserved during the conversion process. Affordable dwelling units should be provided in accordance with the zoning ordinance. Workforce dwelling units should be provided in accordance with the Board of Supervisors policy. Flexibility in applying these policies may be appropriate when considering a live-work conversion. Proposed conversions should undergo review by historic preservation staff if appropriate. This policy plan amendment concerning continuing care facility guidelines is for institutional, residential, mixed use, or commercial, or recommended by the uses recommended by the comprehensive plan. This would avoid a site-specific plan amendment for these facilities and includes performance criteria. Compatibility is the chief performance criteria. These facilities should be of an appropriate scale and design, and transitions to the neighboring properties should be included. For transportation, access to major arterial roads and access to public transportation for larger facilities and to nearby retail and services should be considered in the location. Site and building design, safe movements for pedestrians and those with mobility challenges include desirable features such as integrated trail systems and courtyards, etc. Continuing care facilities are afforded flexibility under intensity conversion provisions of the zoning ordinance and should make contributions on a per square foot basis to the Housing Trust Fund, prioritized to assist with provisions of affordable housing for older adults and/or persons with disabilities. Preserving, protecting, restoring, and enhancing floodplains, stream valleys, woodlands, and wetlands, environmental quality corridors, and resource protection areas is an important criteria. For parks and recreation, trail and sidewalk connections to nearby parks and compliant with ADA regulations is important. Park facility impacts should be offset through dedication of land for new facilities, construction of new facilities, and monetary contributions and funding towards the capital improvements plan projects. This policy plan amendment includes areas planned for industrial use. The board authorized the plan amendment on July 26, 2016, and adopted the policy plan guidance on December 6, 2016. The policy plan amendment recognized that these uses often require higher intensities than are allowed in industrial planned areas, but often do not have the same impacts as other industrial uses. The amendment allowed for more flexibility to consider higher intensities up to 1.0 FAR for uses such as data centers and self-storage facilities in areas planned for industrial use as long as they meet performance criteria. The board also recognized that streamlining the development review process for such uses supported Goal 3 of the county's Economic Success Plan to improve the speed, consistency, and predictability of the development review process. The policy plan amendment allowed the adopted plan guidance to apply to all areas planned but not zoned for industrial use. These are the areas shown in red on this map. The adopted amendment streamlined the review process by eliminating the need for a site-specific plan amendment. Another goal was to incentivize redevelopment and revitalization in industrial areas while ensuring that these uses meet the proposed performance criteria. The first performance criteria addresses peak hour traffic impacts. Any proposed use and intensity should demonstrate that it generates less peak hour traffic than the baseline plan recommendation, or if no intensity is specified, a 0.35 floor area ratio. The second performance criterion addresses mitigation of noise, light, and environmental impacts in order to reduce these impacts on surrounding uses. The performance criterion includes mitigation methods such as substantial setbacks, landscape buffers, walls and fences, and pedestrian scale light poles, and make sure that light is directed away from existing development. The third criterion addresses building design and includes guidance to minimize the visual impacts on surrounding uses by including language regarding high quality building design and materials, variation in building facades, and screening of loading functions. The fourth criterion addresses lot size and parcel consolidation to allow for site circulation, buffers, and the ability to reduce visual impacts. Site features such as buffers can screen parking, loading, and dumpster areas, as well as soften larger building facades. Suitable setbacks along with vegetative buffers can minimize the visual and noise impacts on adjacent properties. Lastly, parcel consolidation offers the ability to develop a larger, more efficiently planned site. The last criterion addresses site design and includes guidance for improvements to circulation and access, parking, landscaping, and stormwater management, all which help to reduce the impacts on surrounding uses and improve the general function and appearance of the site. Additionally, data centers and self-storage facilities tend to require less parking, which can provide the opportunity for more usable open space and/or permeable areas to improve stormwater management. On July 31st, 2018, the board approved a rezoning and special exception application for the Core Site Realty Data Center in Reston. This was the first proposal to use the guidance within the policy plan to allow for a higher intensity. Without the adopted policy plan guidance, the proposed intensity would not have been in conformance with the comprehensive plan, resulting in the need for the board to authorize a site-specific plan amendment. Such uses contribute to the economic growth of the county by attracting data centers and potential users. Thank you for your attention.